this is part 3 of my discussion with DeMaurice Smith, the author of Turf Wars and the former executive director of the NFLPA. D and I discussed today guaranteed contracts and his final love note to the NFL teams, a lawsuit alleging that they colluded to prevent guaranteed contracts. In addition, we talk about when black players were actually integrated into the NFL. I had no idea about this history until I talked to Dee. So as always, I love talking to Dee because we align on so many issues. You don't want to miss this episode. There's so much to talk about. Lastly, we discuss Dee's fantastic book, Turf Wars, which you must read if you enjoyed the last 2 episodes of Born to be a Sports Agent. How do you think the players can get guaranteed contracts in the NFL when when the other professional sports,
Yeah.
or some of them do have it?
And I talk about this in the book, and again, I remember the day that I decided to just, I don't know, back in whenever it was, 2012, 13, when I don't really sleep, which is the other issue. Never have slept well, so
You don't sleep. Wow.
I really don't, never have. And I remember one night going on this down this rabbit hole of guaranteed contracts, and I mean, I certainly knew it in the NFL contract. But I decided to look at all the other, major league, major sport contracts, and no CBA guarantees contracts.
Okay.
So I usually start off the general bar conversation with, the person who says, how come you don't have guaranteed contracts in the NFL? And I always go back to that guy, who's nursing whatever he's drinking, and I'll go, hey man, how about this? I'll bet you drinks if you can tell me which CBA guarantees contracts. And they always start off, well, basketball guarantees contracts. I'm like, okay, man, that's great. You owe me a drink. What about basketball and baseball and hockey? You owe me 3 drinks because no CBA guarantees contracts.
Okay.
That usually comes as a shock to most people because, once again, they've watched sports on TV and therefore they're an expert. So the first thing that you realize is that's never been in any CBA. Guaranteed contracts in all the other sports are guarantees of custom. Custom.
Ah.
So if you go down the rabbit hole, as I did, because I wanted to figure out, okay, when did guaranteed contracts really start? And the one place where you can see sort of the paradigm shift was Larry Bird.
Okay.
So Larry Bird became, played out his rookie contract, became a free agent. The year before he became a free agent, Moses Malone was the highest paid NBA player in the country.
Wow.
And I'm going to forget what the amount was. It doesn't really matter. But when you pick apart the Moses Malone contract, he had the base salary that he was going to get was the base salary he was going to get. But he also had incentives for if they made it to the playoffs, he got a bump. If he made it to the finals, he got a bump. If they won, he got a bump. And if he sold a certain number of jerseys, he got a bump. And that created an amount,
Mhm.
And Larry Bird comes along and he says, I want the amount that Moses Malone has. And at the time, the Celtics actually said, we're not going to pay you that because you're not Moses Malone.
Okay. Yeah.
He and his agents were the first group of people in as far as I can tell in modern sport who said, okay, fine, we might not agree on the money, but whatever amount Larry Bird gets, we want fully guaranteed. We don't want it to turn on signing bonuses. We don't want it to turn on how many jersey sales. We don't want it to turn on any of those other things. Whatever the number we agree to, he's going to be paid 100% of the full number. And as far as I can research, that was the first fully guaranteed contract in sport, modern sport. And
Okay.
so what happened after that was every free agent, they all had different amounts coming to them, obviously. But after Larry Bird would happen, every free agent said, I want the structure to be like Larry Bird's fully guaranteed structure. And that fully guaranteed structure literally went through basketball and baseball. And then we get to football. And for whatever reason, we don't have that fully guaranteed system until a young man who was playing for the Washington team, plays pretty well. RG3 gets hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Cousins is the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And even though RG3 was a first round draft pick, Cousins plays extremely well for the Washington team.
Right.
And instead of letting him go to the free agent market, remember after the 2011 CBA, we changed it. We changed the structure of the franchise tag. We
Right.
said, okay, fine. The owners didn't want to give up their control, so we said, fine. We'll meet in the middle. You can have your control, but if you franchise this guy, you're going to pay him the average of the top five people at his position. So for Kirk Cousins, it was the average of what? Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Matt Ryan, um, and probably one other that I'm forgetting. So he gets franchised the first time. He gets the average of the top five players for a year. And that contract under the CBA is what? Fully guaranteed. So, second time he gets franchised. And we might argue whether Dan Snyder was smart at franchising him the second time. Frankly, I don't care because under the CBA that we changed in 2011, now if you get franchised, you get the average of the top three people in your position. And the thinking behind that was pretty easy. I don't like the franchise tag. So we created a process whereby the franchise tag was so expensive,
Expensive. It had to.
just and fully guaranteed, right? Really expensive and fully guaranteed. That man, if you want to franchise that cat, but what have we seen? Man, teams are just wary of the franchise tag now because it's so expensive and it's fully
Fully
guaranteed.
guaranteed.
So to me, that was okay. We're gonna, that was a big win for us on the franchise side. So, Mr. Cousins does, and his agent, who is a good one,
Mm-hmm.
really good one. He worked with the union during Cousins' journey into free agency, and he got a number of offers for a fully guaranteed contract. And the reasoning from his agent to the teams was simple. Why should Kirk Cousins have a contract that is structured worse than the last two contracts that he had with the Washington team? Right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Makes
if
sense.
the guy had two fully guaranteed contracts in Washington as a free agent, why should he have a contract that's structured in a worse way? And the Minnesota Vikings gave him a fully guaranteed contract. Jill, I was absolutely convinced that after the Cousins contract, that we had reached our Larry Bird moment. Same thing.
Right.
And I thought, okay, I can see the quarterbacks that are coming up on the horizon. I think Matt Ryan was the next year. And if memory serves, Breeze, Manning,
Mm-hmm.
Brady, and Rodgers were, if not in the same year, within the next 2 years after Matt Ryan's contract. And lo and behold, they didn't do fully guaranteed contracts.
Why?
Well, as we now know, I filed a grievance against the National Football League, like literally one of my last acts as a love note to the owners. I filed that on my way out of the NFL Players Association, and we can talk about that scenario if you want, but thanks to Pablo Torre and I guess other reporters who somehow got a hold of that opinion, the arbitrator found that the league's management council urged teams for that time period to avoid fully guaranteed contracts.
Oh,
So
wow.
I think the thing that we now know is um, that, I mean, look, it is no secret for people like you and me that the teams do not like fully guaranteed contracts.
No, of course not.
You and I hopefully are
By the
not
way, universities don't like them either.
100%.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I deal with that on the coaching ADs. That's a whole nother. They don't like those either. They're always trying to get out of them.
100%. And again, I understand from a business standpoint why you may not like those contracts. I get it. But you and I both know that at times that is exactly what the market will bear.
Yes,
So
the person's got to have leverage. And media is even worse.
if you're
Those
Matt
contracts are
Rule,
even worse.
if you're Matt Rule, I know that you got a fully guaranteed contract, right? If I know that DJ Durkin at Maryland had a fully guaranteed contract.
Yes, he did.
So at the end of the day, man, I can understand all the reasons why you may not want to pay it. That's fine. I mean, that's management, right? The real question is if that is what the market should bear, two simple questions. Are the people in that market fighting for their fully guaranteed contract? That's number one. Not going to
Okay.
answer that question. Not going to answer it. And number two, is there collusion preventing it? Those are the only two questions.
Of course they're colluding.
Well, of look,
You're not allowed to say that, D, or
oh, no, 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 no. I'm trying to count up the number of times I accused the league of colluding. I mean, I sued them over the lockout was collusion.
uh-huh,
Kaepernick was collusion.
for sure.
The guaranteed contracts was collusion.
Hmm.
So no, I openly called the league for what they are. They are a cartel. They, in some respects, are a legal one, but they're also an illegal one when they lock out the players or when they collude against a player or when they collude against guaranteed contracts. That is unlawful cartel behavior. And that's what they do. It's what they've always done. I mean,
Yeah.
look, 1933, there's a secret handshake among NFL owners to prevent black players from coming into the National Football League.
What?
1933. Oh, yeah. Handshake agreement between, this is a fascinating story. Got 30 seconds?
I got all the time. D, I
So,
could talk to you
you
for
know,
10 hours and not be done.
one of the things, and I talk about it a little bit in the book, but sport, again, your proverbial guide at the proverbial Chili's at the O'Hare Airport, where I think I spent like untold dozens of hours of my life in that airport Chili's. I just have. There should be a little table with a brass plaque on it that says D. Smith's table. But the proverbial guy in the proverbial bar that we can all have the conversation with. Hey, sport is about a couple of things. And sport's about bringing people together. Yes. Sport is about the best athletes on the field. Yes. Sport's about competition. Yes. The great thing about sport is everybody wants to win. And on any given Sunday, these teams come together with this idea of bringing the best athletes at the best day for the best sports. Hmm, hmm, maybe some of that is not true, right? Because I'll ask you the question. Does every owner every year want to win as much as every other owner?
Of course.
No,
You don't
I
think?
don't think so. No,
Really?
no, no. Look, first of all, when we established the salary cap floor in 2011,
Hmm.
that was because when we did the regression analysis and I saw the numbers, and saw that on any given year prior to 2010, there were a bunch of teams who were only spending 75 to 70% of the salary cap.
But
Right.
their attitude is I can win without do. I think one of their attitudes
That's,
is I can win with less.
but
That's what
that's my point. Until 2011, the NFL had a salary cap system where I guarantee you every chuckles in the bar thought that all the teams were spending up to the salary cap and the cap acted as a ceiling to
right,
keep everybody equal.
Right. And they
My
weren't.
argument is there were teams not spending up to the salary cap. And that tells me that you don't want to win as much as the other guy.
Okay.
You want the money because if you
Yeah.
don't spend the salary cap, the money goes into your greedy little pocket with your grubby little fingers, right? I get it. It's fine. But every fan, and probably every fan now, thought that, well, I mean, the cap was there to prevent people from overspending. No, the cap was there so that smart general managers could do what you just said. Man, can we be competitive with less? Okay. That's not that's not what everybody believes sports should be about in the NFL system, right?
Yeah.
If I'm a fan of my team, what do I want? I want them to spend every dollar of the salary cap to win us a championship every year. And the fact is, prior to 2011, there were a bunch of GMs and owners who simply didn't do that. You look at the teams that were spending in the 70s at some time during the pre 2011 years. Two teams that I can point out that at times were spending 70 to 80% of the salary cap, Buffalo and and um, and Cincinnati. So if you go back and look at those spends, and I'm just looking at the spends, not the cap spend, the cash spend. More, we don't have enough time to tell people that difference, but
Okay.
you remember there used to be a difference between cap dollars and cash dollars,
Right.
right?
Right. Right. Right.
2011 system changed it to a cash system, not a cap system.
Mhm.
So I'm sitting there looking at all these teams spending 70, 75%, 78% of the cap. And you're saying, well, first of all, I mean, I know the rest of the money is going into their pocket because they're not spending it. But worse, what does that tell me about whether they really want to win as much as a guy spending 95% of the salary cap, 100% of the salary cap every year, right? So that's kind of the first thing where the first myth that I try to dispel is not all these people want to win equally. I mean, fans have a concept of the NFL and competition, and you and I both know that there's a reality that doesn't meet what fans think.
Right.
But so okay, that's the first myth that we've dispelled that they all want to win the same. I'm saying, okay, we're always trying to find the best athletes, get the best athletes on the field, because if we get the best athletes on the field and I have the best athletes and he is the best athlete, we're gonna have a great athletic competition where the best team wins, except for one problem. In 1933, the league owners decide that, yeah, we just don't want black people playing football. So in 1933, the owners had a handshake agreement that kept the National Football League white until 1947. So what happens in 1947? 1947, the Los Angeles Rams are playing at the Los Angeles Coliseum. And up until that point, not a black person on the team. But
Really?
weirdly, right down the street from wherever the Rams were playing that year or where they were housed was a small, not really successful college team called, what's the team? UCLA. I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but at a time they were really good at what's the sport I'm looking for? Football
Oh, and basketball.
and basketball. The backfield for the UCLA Bruins in 1945 and 1946 was Woody Strode, um, Kenny Washington, and some guy, God, man, what's that guy's name? Yeah, let's see. He integrated baseball. Oh yeah, Jackie Robinson. Yeah, that was UCLA's backfield.
Oh, interesting.
Now, did the Rams see down the street that there's these three outstanding black athletes? We must get them on the Rams team. No. The Rams integrated for only one reason. They were playing in the LA Coliseum, and the LA City Council said, we're not going to let you be a segregationist team and play in a publicly funded
Funded
stadium
facility. Yeah.
unless you integrate. So you know what didn't integrate the National Football League? Competition. Competition did not integrate the National Football League. Government action integrated the National Football League. So in
Interesting.
1947, they say you cannot play in the LA Coliseum unless you stop being a segregationist team. And Kenny Washington goes to the Los Angeles Rams. The last team in the National Football League to integrate was the Washington Redskins. Rams, 1947. Redskins, 1968.
What?
They integrate because a young man who became a dear friend of mine, Bobby Mitchell, is the first black player on the Washington Redskins. Now, over since 1947, there's been almost 20 years of integration in the National Football League. The Washington Redskins were the last team to integrate. They don't integrate until I think 1967, 1968. Do they integrate because, well, wait a minute. I mean, all these teams now are having these athletes and it is more competitive and we're now getting the best athletes on the field. Did the Washington Redskins make the decision that we now have to integrate because we need to have the best athletes? No. No. Why did the Washington Redskins integrate? Because they were playing at a federally funded stadium that was City Stadium and then renamed RFK Stadium after the slain Robert F. Kennedy.
Oh,
And
wow.
both the city council and the federal government said, just like the Rams, you will not be allowed to play in a taxpayer funded stadium if you are segregationist. So the first team of the National Football League integrates because of government action. The last team of the National Football League integrates because of government action. So I don't want anyone to sit around and tell me that football is somehow magically about getting the best athletes on the field and having the best competition. Because at the end of the day, the only reason those two teams integrated was not because they wanted to. It wasn't because they believed in sport. It wasn't because they believed in competition. It wasn't believed they even wanted to make the most money, right? It was because someone made them do it.
Wow. I had no idea.
Yeah. So look, I know everybody thought that I was always a little salty, when I was executive director. I'm kindler, gentler now. I'm like, yeah, got myself a little smoothie over here on the side. I'm good.
You're good
But,
now. That's because you're
but
not having to do it. Wait,
right.
but before we get off, what about what happened after you? Who they hired? D.
Okay, Jill. So here's the deal.
So you're not
So
going to talk about that.
I have a pure non-disparagement clause in my contract where I can't say anything bad about
Okay.
NFLPA.
Okay.
But I can be factual. I mean,
Okay. What?
look, the one thing I would say to the players is, man, leadership is really important.
Yeah.
It's really important. And what I would say to them is if they didn't know the story of the integration of the National Football League, if they don't understand the level of warfare that Gene Upshaw had to wage,
Oh, I know he was amazing. Gene
he
was,
was amazing.
yeah.
He was
As
amazing.
as were you. I mean, I'm just,
Well, whatever. But
yeah.
but he was amazing because he went through hand-to-hand combat. He went through strikes as a player and strikes as an executive director. He watched NFL players cross the picket line and screw the union.
Hmm.
And I remember sitting down with some players, while I was there, and some of them in leadership, who had negative things to say about Gene Upshaw. And, first of all, they probably got 20, 25 minutes of a profanity laced response because, I'll light you up. And I'll light you up for being ignorant and light you up for not reading and not knowing your own union's history. But leadership is really important. And if they think that it is more important to to have someone who they think is a business guy and somehow this business guy is going to utter the magic words and that person is going to be someone who understands the owners and a person who understands their language and that person's going to be able to do things for a union that we want them to do. I mean, there is a Mary Poppins way of looking at this business, and you've met them, and I've met them. The only problem is this business is less Mary Poppins and far more D-Day. It just is.
Yeah.
It is not for if you want to do the job the right way, if you want to try to make the lives of players better tomorrow than it was the day before, man, all I would say is, man, just instead of thinking you understand it, just do the history. Just just do the history. And when you think about, we're old enough to remember just literally the fights that this union had to go through.
Wow.
They think 401ks well, every business has a 401k. First of all, they don't. So stop. Just stop, right? First of
Right.
all, most businesses don't, and we do. Well, why don't you find out how we have one? Um, well, everybody has a pension. No, they don't. Find out why we have them. Find out why you have workers' comp. Find out why you have salary floors. Find out why there's so much of a fight over shares of revenue. Find out why, you do everything to change the health and safety landscape. None of that. No, I mean, there was literally not one thing I can think of where the owners of the National Football League or the management of the National Football League came and said, "Hey, I have a good idea. This will be good for the players." I cannot think of one. Not one. Well, D, we do this with we do like this boot camp for media. I'm like, okay. And when it comes to wages, hours, and working conditions of NFL players, I cannot think of one idea that originated from the league that was in the best interest of the players. Not one. I mean, I'll flip it around. What general manager has, while you were negotiating with them, has ever turned to you and said, "Hey, Jill, here's the thing. I have a great idea for your player that's good for them."
No.
No.
No, no. I mean, I remember one specific meeting. They were all in there, and I said, "Here's what you did to my player. You weren't treating him right." And they're all like, "Well, we didn't know." Well, this is what happened, and your GM did it. So I'm telling
Right.
you, this GM was gone. And I said, "Da, da, 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 da," and they all just sat there. I think they weren't used to. I don't think they weren't used to being called out. I don't know.
100%. Welcome to my world.
And it was me against like, I don't know, there was like 10 of them in the room.
You're going to be fine. If it's you against 10 of them, I would say it's an unfair
Yeah.
fight
But it was like 10 to
they
1.
bring
I
like
was like,
15 or 20.
this is the kind of stuff that happened to my player, and I don't like it.
Well,
They were
and
like, no, 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 no. Yeah.
they're not used to being called out. And the only thing I would say in their defense is that's not even cognitive to them, right? I mean, if something bad happens to an NFL player, they're sort of like, "Well, D, that's football." I'm like, "Well, no, no.
Yeah.
It
Well,
doesn't have to be football." And I think until people know the history and just have a willingness to call them out, right? I mean,
Well, I
that was
did.
why I wrote the book because if I don't write this book, or let me flip it around.
Yeah, okay. How does somebody get your book? That more important.
Oh, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any place where you want to shop. There's a lovely, I'm a big fan of independent bookstores. They all have it. The book was number one on Amazon for entertainment, the
Yep.
Audible book.
Yeah, I looked that up.
Um,
Yep.
I read the book, which was interesting, but I'm glad people enjoy it. But yeah, anybody can get the book anywhere they want. And, as always, it's always fun to talk with someone who understands the industry, like I do, and loves the players as much as I do. And, any player that's lucky enough, fortunate enough to have you as their advocate, man, that's a really lucky person.
Well, thanks, Dee. So, is there anything else you want to share about this book before we finish part
I
two?
would say this. If you are a fan of football, like really a fan of it, where you dig the players, you want to know everything about kind of your favorite player, what the guys are really like, Turf Wars is your book. If you want to understand the business of football, where it's literally the matrix behind how do GMs think, how owners think, how do agents deal with all of this? How does the union deal with all of this? For good or for bad, there's only one guy who's negotiated with all 31 of these people, and because I never wanted anything from them, I'm willing to call some of them not particularly smart. And some of them just aren't. And some of them don't do or say nice things. If that interests you, Turf Wars is for you. And I guess what I would say lastly is, man, our country is in sore need of just people who are willing to be leaders. And it doesn't mean you're going to agree with everything that a particular leader does. But I always thought that the best leaders were the ones who took an oath to really do what they thought was in the best interest of the people that elected them. And that means a little bit more than just lip service. It means literally fighting for them in a way that they can't fight for themselves.
Right.
And those are tough. Those are tough jobs. And if you don't want to take that job for the right reasons, don't take it. And
True.
if players don't want to elect, and if our citizenry don't want to elect those people for the right reasons, don't pick those people. Because I can tell you one thing without, let's just say hypothetically, if you're more focused on, you know, how long you can stay in a strip club, then
Not a good.
maybe, maybe not that guy, right?
Yeah.
And if you think that, I look back on, again, the reporting that Pablo Torre and others have done around this, but the idea that there was a collusion ruling where a judge said that the management council urged teams to not um, do guaranteed contracts. I cannot imagine a scenario where you don't have an obligation to tell that ruling to the players.
Right.
And if for some reason you thought it was a good idea to engage in a some sort of an agreement with the people that you are literally hired to fight against, then man, I have a lot of questions about your judgment.
Yeah. True. Well,
Turf Wars came out before all of that, so that's not in Turf Wars. But man, if you want to really know who the good players are, the people who are good leaders, you want to know who Jeff Saturday is. Is he really that good of a dude? Yeah, yeah, he is. You may not like Tom Brady on the field, but as far as a dude who stood up for his union, you want to read about Tom Brady and Turf Wars and Kevin Mawai and Brian Dawkins and Dominique Foxworth. Those those guys who made a decision um, to take that union job that's thankless. And
Yes. Did you think that all this stuff with Tom Brady was completely like because of competition and they didn't like the Patriots winning all the time?
I'll take, so the best way I know how to describe like the Tom Brady I know is my dad cannot stand Tom Brady. I mean, he just can't. I mean, why? And here's why. Because my dad is a hardcore Washington football team guy. And like he would say, "Hey man, Tom stands back there like a general, and all he does is like throws and completions, and he just stands back there and wins games." And I'm like, "Well, you might not like him because he wins." I mean,
Yeah.
that might be
Because he beats your team. Yeah.
he just beats him to death. And so, but there is a Tom Brady that, and I tell the story in Turf Wars. The first time I met Tom Brady was he was waiting for me outside of the Patriots team room because he wanted to meet me and walk me into the team because he wanted to present me to them as the leader. And you know what?
Yep.
Yep, that's that guy.
Yeah, he is
So
that guy.
and that's a side of people that I think fans never, I don't even think. That's a side of players that fans never see, you
Because he's a
know,
leader.
because he's a leader. And
Yeah.
he was on that lawsuit to sue the league in 2011. And Peyton Manning was on that lawsuit, and Drew Brees was on that lawsuit, and Mike Vrabel was on that lawsuit. And if you want to know what those people are really like, then you're going to enjoy Turf Wars.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you again for being on part
We
two.
could do this all day. I
I
love
know
talking.
we could do it all day, so we will have to just keep up. And thanks, Dee.
Always a
Appreciate it.
pleasure, Jill.
All
Take
right.
care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap for today's episode of Born to be a Sports Agent. If you liked what you heard, go ahead and hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And hey, if you got a friend, coach, or athlete who could use this info, share it with them. And if you ever find yourself needing some straight up legal help in the sports world, I'm just a call away. Links in the show notes. Catch you next time.